And we're coming up on the top of the hour on this CNN Saturday morning. Good morning to you all on this July 2nd. I'm TJ Holmes. The Florida murder trial of Casey Anthony is close to being in the hands of the jury. She, of course, accused of killing her 2-year-old daughter. Both sides have wrapped up testimony. We are covering this case for you this morning. Sean Lavin has been watching the proceedings for us there in Orlando. Also, we'll be joined by Holly Hughes, an attorney here in Atlanta, with me in just a moment. Sean, let me start with you and just talk about the schedule, essentially. They wrapped up when yesterday, and they're not in court today, even though we've seen them on most Saturdays.
Yeah, they wrapped up yesterday afternoon, TJ, and just because they're not in court today does not mean that both sides are not working very hard. The judge gave them the day off today so they could prepare for those crucial closing arguments tomorrow. Those are going to start tomorrow about 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. Both sides will give their closing arguments. After that, the judge will read the jury some instructions, and then the jury will go into deliberations. And theoretically, we could have a verdict tomorrow. That's not very likely, though. The court's prepared to go into the 4th of July and let them deliberate as long as they need to until they can decide if Casey Anthony is guilty of first-degree murder.
All right, let me bring in Holly Hughes now, attorney here in studio with me. Holly, you hear him talking about this wrapping up. Not likely, I guess, necessarily that they would get a verdict tomorrow after the closing arguments, but how many more surprises could there be? Is this really it tomorrow?
Well, he thinks so.
Well, she says someone political and I was some person in government. I think
It was like the old saying from the movie Jaws, just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water, just when you think it's safe to go back in the courtroom, any crazy thing can happen. So, you know, Judge Perry has done his best to move this along and be respectful of the jurors and their schedules. So, yeah, I think we are going to see the closings tomorrow, but they're going to take a couple hours. So I think we're going to have closings in the morning. There's going to be a lunch break. They'll come back. He'll have to charge them on the law. They're probably not going to start deliberating until about 2. I think we're going to see them come back, want to continue to deliberate on the 4th of July. We might have a verdict by about Wednesday or Thursday after they've had a chance to go through all this evidence.
And good call or bad call? Holly, everybody was debating about it. Should she take the stand? And something you were discussing with me downstairs before we came up here for the newscast is that they put a much greater burden on themselves, the defense, when they introduce this theory of how the child actually died. Kaylee actually died, but wasn't it Casey? Isn't she the only person who can really prove that theory by getting on the stand and saying, this is what happened?
That's exactly right. You know, as we all know in criminal cases, it is the prosecution, the state, that has the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. The defense doesn't have to say or do anything. And there's actually a jury charge, TJ, where the judge says you cannot hold it against the defendant for not testifying. You cannot draw any inference harmful or hurtful if she maintains her constitutional right to silence. So what they did was they shifted that burden on themselves. They put up all these wild accusations that George molested her and Roy Crunk is morally bankrupt and Lee molested her. All this craziness, and they didn't prove it. She was the only one who could have done it. It fell flat. It's not there. They can't argue it in closing. And the jury is going to be angry because now they're going to feel like not only is the defendant a proven liar, but her attorney lied to them as well.
Okay, does he really, Holly, have to knock it out of the park, the defense attorney, in closing? Can he even, I mean, in these types of cases, how much of a difference does a closing argument make after a month of testimony?
I'll tell you what, these are exactly the cases where it's crucial because the jury has had a month of testimony. It's been so long since they've heard the state's case. So everything is scattered. It's drawn apart. These are crucial times. These attorneys, state and defense, need to get up and stitch all of those pieces back into a cohesive picture for the jury. And, you know, you nailed it, TJ. He does not just need a home run here. It's got to be a grand slam. It has got to be out of the park to even get one juror to think there's reasonable doubt, and then at least he hangs it.
All right, and Sean Lavin, our reporter we have down there in Orlando for us, one quick thing to you, since you are seeing what's happening outside the courthouse. We have seen all kinds of madness out there over the past month of this trial. Now that it's actually wrapping up, are you seeing, I guess, more activity, more people just stopping by to take a look? Just what is it like outside the courthouse?
Well, the court had to take some measures to stop things from getting out of control because we had people waiting in line all hours of the night. They'd come up before midnight, TJ, to stand in line to get a ticket here in court. The court changed the policy, so now people wait during the day. It's safer, so we don't have those crazy crowds that we used to. We have a more orderly line. There are more media coming here. There are more bystanders coming to take a look, take pictures of the courthouse. We don't have that craziness we saw a couple weeks ago when people were fighting literally for a spot in this courtroom.
Yeah, it was ugly there for a while. Now the craziness has been just confined inside the courtroom, it seems, for the last few days. Sean Lavin in Orlando for us. Holly Hughes here in studio with me. Holly, always good to have you as well. And Sean, thank you so much. We'll turn now here at 5.